The reason being is that we thought if we do it this way, then you can pause the video as we go along if you need to wait or catch up with anything that you've misheard. Okay, so tonight we're going to be cooking spaghetti bolognese. The ingredients that you will need are mince. We're using pork and beef mince. If you want, you can use just beef mince. If you wanted a healthier option, you could use turkey mince, or vegetarian, you can use Quorn. Then you will need half a punnet of mushrooms, a carrot, 2 sticks of celery, 2 cloves of garlic, 2 onions, and then to season you can add some oregano and some bay leaves. And then we also need for the sauce tomatoes, so 2 tins of tomatoes, and I'm going to use 2 oxo cubes beef just to make add a little bit of extra flavour to that. Equipment that you'll need is you'll need a chopping board. So we're at school, so we're using the correct chopping board for the vegetables, which most of you will know is green. And then you will also need a large pan for cooking spaghetti. You don't have to use spaghetti, you can use any other kind of pasta, so you can use fusilli, penne. And then you'll also need a large frying pan, or you can use a large pan for cooking the bolognese. And then you'll need a colander to drain. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to start by chopping the onions and the celery. So when you're chopping the onions, I'm going to give these to Matt to chop in a moment, and just chop the ends off really carefully. And remember to try and keep your fingers back so that you're not cutting into yourself. Matt, can I give you that one to start doing with that? And then when we're doing this, if you chop down the middle, and then if you just hold on to it, so this is chopped really finely, okay? Because then you're not going to have massive big chunks in your bolognese, unless of course you like it chunky. Okay, and remember just to keep your thumb out of the way so that you're not having any injuries. Okay, I'm chopping these now so that when I start cooking the bolognese, I can keep my eye on the mince as well. And again, you don't have to use 2 onions if you don't want to, you can use 1, because we are going to add celery as well to it in a moment. Okay, and then, in fact, I'm just going to pop that on a plate so I can set that aside. If I just pass that on to you as well. There, and then you've got that prepped, and then also the celery. So the celery adds loads of flavour, and it's really good for you as well, celery. I can't stand celery to eat when it's cold, but when you put it in food I can't taste it. So it's just one of those extra 5 a day that you can do without realising that you're eating it. So I'm just going to cut down the middle. You don't have to do that, it's just that I like it really small. So you can either cut it like that and then into it, or again, if you want it chunky, just cut straight across. Okay, so I'm just going to pass those over to Matt to start chopping. Thank you. So they can go put aside with the onion. And then what I'm going to do is just slice the mushrooms. So again, wash the mushrooms before you use them. So you can either wash them or you can peel them, it's up to you. I'm just washing them because it's a little bit easier. Okay, and then again I'm just going to slice these. Okay, so most of our veggies chopped now, so we've got the celery, the onions, and we've also got some grated carrot. Again, that just adds flavour to it. If you didn't want to use the grated carrot or the celery, you can just add a vegetable stock cube, because that also adds the extra flavour. And then we've got the mushrooms. The only thing you need to chop now is the garlic. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic. Instead of like spending time peeling them, if you just put your knife over the top and push down, but do that really carefully, I don't want anyone cutting themselves, and then you can just chop the ends off. And this skin, I'm saying that, no it won't happen, normally just peels off really easy. There we go. Okay, so it should come off in one piece. of all of that bit. Okay, so once you put that bit aside, then just chop that up really small, and then you can use that when you add the mince to the frying pan. Right, okay, so I'm going to start frying the mince off. So in your frying pan, I'm just going to heat that up slightly, and I'm going to put some olive oil in there. So you can use vegetable oil at home or sunflower oil, or some people are using the low calorie spray oil. You can use any of those, anything will work. And then I'm just going to add the garlic now to it. If you add the garlic now, then the flavour will start going into the oil for when you cook your mince. Okay, so I'm just going to let that heat up. Okay, so while that's warming up, I've put already in the pan here some hot water just for when we do the pasta. So when I actually cook the pasta, I normally put in some salt just to add a bit of flavour, and I also just put a small dash of olive oil in it because that will stop the pasta from sticking together. Once your pan's ready, your garlic will be sizzling a little bit. You don't want it burning there. So I'm just going to put my mince in and start cooking that. Okay, so just a reminder, if you wanted to use different alternatives, you could use Quorn for this. So you can use Quorn mince. If you wanted a healthier alternative, turkey mince is healthier, it has less fat in it. You can use beef, and just to remind you, we're using pork and beef just because it gives it that bit of extra flavour. Normally, if I'm cooking this at home, I normally cook the onions and the celery first just to add some flavour to it. But a lot of people, they like to make sure that the mince is really cooked thoroughly before they start adding anything else to it. So that's the reason why I've done it this way today. So if you're cooking the mince, if you find that you've got quite a lot of fat in the bottom, if you want to get rid of that, then that's fine. Just carefully use another container. Don't pour it straight down the sink because it'll clog the sink up. Just pour it into another container, and you can just set that aside until it cools and then dispose of it properly. So that there will get rid of some of the fat for you. And then I'm just going to add the onions and celery. I'm going to add that both together. Okay, and then I'm just going to brown this off now. So I'm going to wait until the onions go translucent. And once that's done, I'm going to start adding the carrots. So if you want to pause this until you get to that point, that's fine. Or if you want to rewind and go back to any of the other steps that we've done so far, feel free to do so. Okay, so that should take about 10 minutes for your onions to start going a lot clearer. I'm going to start adding the carrots to them now. So they've just really started to soften up, but you just want those a little bit softer. I'm going to add the carrot to it. And again, this is just to add flavour. And mix that in. That carrot is grated, so it won't take long. I'm going to add the mushrooms as well now. Again, mushrooms are made up mainly of water, so again that doesn't take too long to cook, so that's why I'm adding these in later. And I'm just going to let that cook together for about 5 minutes. Okay, so all of that there is starting to brown off now and cook nicely. I'm just going to add some flavour to it, and I'm going to use 2 OXO cubes. If you want to add more, you can do. I won't put any more than 3 in. If you want it really tomatoey, I'd just add 1. Okay, so I'm just going to pop those in. You can squeeze them in the packets now. Who knew? And I'm just going to start mixing that in. If you add it in now before you add the tomatoes, then it'll flavour the mince as well a little bit more. If you wanted to use a chicken stock cube, you can do. Any meat stock cube will do, unless you're doing it vegetarian. Okay, I'm just going to stir that in. And then in the packs that we've sent out to students that have requested this, we've sent 2 tins of tomatoes. So if you're making it, use 2 tins of tomatoes, or if you don't want it chunky and you want it really smooth, use passata. I sometimes use that at home, especially like if I'm cooking something else like a chilli, just so it's not as chunky. So I have actually got loads of tomato here, so I'm just going to put so much of this in. And something that I haven't added, which I should have added when I was cooking the mince, is a couple of bay leaves. Okay, so if you smell them, they just add quite a bit of flavour to it and makes it smell really nice as well. And I'm also going to put oregano in it, which adds flavour, and it's a really common herb used in Italy. Okay, so I'm just going to put a couple of teaspoons in there. And finally, can I just have the spoon back? Sorry, I'm going to add a pinch of salt and pepper as well, just to season that. So get all of that mixed in. So if you want, set some of the tomato aside, because whilst it's simmering, sometimes it might dry out a little bit, so you can add a little bit of the tomato to it later on. It's up to you. So a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. I love pepper, so I always put loads in. So at the minute it does look really chunky, and you can see all the colours of the different vegetables, but once you've left that to simmer, that'll all start blending in as well, and the flavours will start breaking down more. Then while that's simmering, what I'm going to do is I filled a pan of water. Like I said, to stop your spaghetti from sticking together, I always put a tiny splash of olive oil on in it, or you can use vegetable oil and some salt. And then for your spaghetti, somebody's just asked me how much you meant to do per portion. In all honesty, I don't know. So if I was cooking at home, if I was cooking for say 5 people, I'd do the full pack of spaghetti. If I'm cooking just for 2 or 3 people, I'd put half a pack of spaghetti in. So I'm just going to put half of this in. So a good way of doing it without having to cut it is, right, get it all in one pile, and then if you just rest it on the side. Okay, once it starts going soft, the bits that are already in the pan, then you can just push the rest into it. So I'm going to turn that back up a little bit now. The spaghetti, that is. Okay, and I'm just going to give that a quick stir. You can turn this down now if you want to. If you look at the pasta, you can see how that's just fallen in, so I'm just going to nudge the rest in, and I'm just going to give it a bit of a swell so none of the bits do stick together and the olive oil's kind of moving around with it. There you go, and then I'm just going to cover that and then let that boil. Normally it takes about 10 minutes to boil. Okay, so that's been simmering for 10 minutes, so that'll have reduced now, so the liquid will appear to be a lot thicker as well, okay, and that'll add to the flavour. Your pasta should be cooked, so you can take a piece out if you want and test that, so just pull one piece out. If some people like it al dente, so al dente is where it's slightly undercooked. I think that's more of an Italian way there. I'm just going to drain this off into a colander. Okay, so be really careful you're not burning yourself on the steam from that, and just give that a bit of a shake. A tongue or a spatula, you can start serving now. So some people like to add the spaghetti into the Bolognese sauce, which you can do if you want to. If you do it that way, don't rinse the spaghetti first, because if the spaghetti has loads of starch on it, and the sauce will stick to the spaghetti better with the starch. Okay, so carefully I'm just going to bring the Bolognese over. So if you want to, you can leave this to reduce longer, and the longer you leave it to reduce, the better the flavours will taste, because they'll have longer to cook. But 10-15 minutes should be fine. Add a little bit more onto that one. I'm just going to put that on the side, and then to finish it off, you can put cheese on the top. So I love cheese on the top of mine. I'm going to use Gran Padano. You don't have to use this one. If you want, you can use cheddar cheese. That's up to you. Okay, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on the top. And there you go, spaghetti bolognese.